My name is Dean Whalen, Chief Legal Officer of Readback, and I'm here interviewing John Skelton, a partner in the firm of Safarth. So John is, it says you're co-chair of a multidisciplinary franchise and distribution team with significant trial experience. So John, you've been a litigator since 1990, and you've probably conducted hundreds of depositions. So today we'd like to get the benefit of your expertise and have a conversation about deposition and technology. How are you, John?
I'm great.
So when you're approaching litigation with your clients, and obviously you have some significant clients, so you must have to discuss the discovery process, and of course depositions is part of that discovery process. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. It's part of the strategy. I got a complaint yesterday, and I just sent it off to the client, and we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to be down at the client's headquarters on Monday or Tuesday. We're going to have a conversation about our initial strategy. And one of the initial strategies is, what is discovery going to be like? And how are we going to strategically approach discovery? And when you have, today, post-COVID, more and more of those depositions are being taken remotely, which is a very big benefit to clients, especially sophisticated clients that have their workforce spread across the country. You don't have to spend 3 or 4 days of having people fly in for depositions. You can do preparation remotely. Then you can actually, I can be in Boston, the witness can be in New Jersey, and the opposing counsel can be in Florida, and we can all deal with that. So going into that strategic discussion is, what kind of discovery are we going to take, how many depositions, what is really crucial, and then how best do we do that in a efficient, effective, and cost effective manner. Because even though cases are, some of my practice involves some pretty high stake litigation, budget is always a consideration, and discovery can get pretty expensive.
So we've told you some things about our service, Readback. It's kind of an emerging deposition technology, and it focuses on delivering transcripts fast, right? 1 day certified transcripts, using a viewer, you getting rough drafts at very quick pace. One of the things, John, that I've learned over the course of introducing this new revolutionary product kind of to the industry is the number of attorneys that really don't have any experience with the use of real time, the use of the real time feed, the use of getting that transcripts back at a fast pace. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how often do you use real time, and that must be part of the budget discussion with your client.
Yeah, absolutely. So I said at the outset, 30 plus years commercial litigation. When I first started, you walked into a deposition with a yellow legal pad, your questions, your outline, bunch of binders with all of your exhibits, boxes of stuff. It was very paper intensive, and it wasn't very. It was effective because it required a lot of preparation. As technology has come in, anybody, there are still old school attorneys that still walk in there with the yellow legal pad and the like, and that's fine, but you are doing your client a disservice if you have not figured out and embraced the latest technology. When it comes to depositions, and it was a while back when I was first introduced to real time, and had the ability to have a monitor, my laptop, at the deposition where I could see a live feed of that Q&A. And what that did for me was it meant that I didn't have to try and remember the entire witness's answer. I could see it live. And I think one of the biggest mistakes attorneys make in a deposition is not listening to the answer. You ask a question, they give you an answer. And if you don't really pay attention to what that answer is, and 2 months later, you're preparing your summary judgment and you go back to the transcript and you say, oh, I thought it was better than that. Seeing it live, seeing it on the screen, you then get to not have to rely upon your notes, your memory, but you get to see it, and then you get to do the follow-ups. You also you now have an advantage in my mind when the other side, the lawyer and the defending lawyer, objects to the form of the question, blah, blah, blah. I get to see exactly the words I used in my question. I then get to decide, well, maybe that wasn't the best question, and I can then rephrase it. Or I say, no, that's a good question, answer it. And I don't have to then have, one of the frustrating things in deposition is how many times do we say to the court reporter, could you read that back? And the court reporter has to scroll through, find the Q&A. It is a time killer. Having that real-time feed right there, and the ability in real time to do some tagging so that you can hit the space bar and kind of put like a little post-it note on a Q&A that you then get to go back to after it. The bottom line is that I would say the vast majority of the depositions we do right now in our cases involve that kind of technology, that kind of real time. And it's the kind of the rare exception where we just go old school.
Yeah, so we are, well, I'll speak for myself. I'm approaching the 16th hole of my career, right? So we could be considered dinosaurs, but I've embraced technology and certainly understand it. And one of the things I was most nervous about with technology as I was, kind of reinventing myself is, how do you set all this up? Like with an average deposition, what does your desk look like? How many computers do you need? How complicated is it? Or is it something that older guys can kind of adapt to?
So two situations. One is the old school live deposition, right? There is not an attorney practicing today that doesn't have a laptop. And all you really need at that deposition, I mean, I still bring in my notepad. I still bring in my written outline of the topics and the questions, and I have my laptop next to me. And on that laptop, I have my real-time feed. If I'm doing a remote depositions, which since COVID, all of my depositions, recently have been remote. And, virtually all the attorneys now at their desk, you got to clean it off a little bit but you should be doing that anyways. You have probably 2 monitors, or you have one big one that you can split. And so you are seeing the Zoom feed on one side, so you're seeing the witness, and then on the other side you have the real-time feed, or the minute you're doing those remote depositions, you've got the exhibits, loaded in a document database that you are then using. So it's no harder or no more challenging. Either you're bringing your laptop to your deposition, which you probably have anyways, or you're just using your regular computer setup at your desk.
All right, so you have clients that obviously can afford to use real time. There's high stakes litigation, so in your case, your discovery budgets are probably larger than most. But I suppose even in those cases, there's still discussions about how much money you want to spend on these depositions, especially if you have to have 10 or 20 of them, right?
Yes. There is an incremental cost for the traditional real time, and you got to build that in. But for me, or really for anybody, if all of a sudden you are doing remote depositions, you're avoiding all the travel costs, all the travel time, because
Sure.
you're in your office. All of a
Right.
sudden, and you don't have to block out a day. Now it's a morning or afternoon. That deposition is much faster, it's much quicker. So you are saving time. And for the minute you're doing remote or the minute you're doing real time, and the benefit of real time is one of the benefits of real time is your clients or colleagues, associates, or others, or if in a more complex case, your expert witness can see the feed themselves. So you don't have to fly your expert in for the deposition. They can be logged in. They can be seeing the Q&A. They can be taking notes. They can be, depending upon who is being deposed, either you're communicating at breaks or they're, in the old days, people would slip the Post-it note across the table. Well, now all that can be done electronically.
So if you examine the price structure of real time or near time, as Readback calls it, what if I were to tell you that Readback has developed a technology that can offer the near time feed, a certified transcript in 1 business day, and a rough draft 1 hour after the deposition for the same price as traditional court reporting? How do you see the impact to your clients?
It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Even if you don't, you still focus on your notes and your outline and listening to the witness and the like, and even if you aren't using during the deposition the feed, I guarantee attorneys who, the minute they start doing it, if for no other reason, when you get a question and an answer, and it's an important answer, and you want to think of your follow-up questions, you're going to want to take a look at that feed and formulate the next Q&A. So I think once they start, you will never go back. But the fact that so the minute you have if you have a collaborative team, the minute that associate, colleague, or whomever can get that transcript at the end of the deposition, right? I would say that, I'm thinking of one case that I have down in New York. We won on summary judgment. We're heading into a damages phase, right? Every single deposition in that case was taken, with real time. And we needed to have real time because of where all the litigants were located. We would agree upon a week, and we would take 3 depositions in that week, often back to back. And if you are preparing for either defending or taking back to back, it is so helpful to walk out. You don't need it certified, but walking out with that rough at the end of the deposition is something that's invaluable for preparing for the next one, because you want to see how certain witnesses are answering, the kind of the same line of questions. And then the minute you're up against any kind of discovery cutoff or filing deadline, where you have to when you have to file a brief with deposition citations, the minute in the traditional sense you have to ask for an expedited transcript, that's when the price skyrockets. And so if in the feedback situation, you are getting the cost being whatever the cost is, and you're getting that rough at the end of the day and the certified transcript within 24 hours, that's a huge savings.
So it's got to help with the pace of the cases also, being able to kind of stack these depositions. And I would imagine you're dealing with multiple files. So while the deposition's fresh in your mind, being able to, you or in your case, having associates that can assist, being able to quickly deal with these issues, quickly discuss with the expert like within the same day, and be able to go into that next deposition, the pace of moving these files must be astronomical.
Absolutely. And that becomes an important issue with respect to scheduling, and then ultimately that collaboration, because others can see it, get it, and comment on it. And one of the things that too often happens is that you go and you take a deposition, you walk out, you move on to another case, and you don't come back to it for 30 days. And then there's a whole, reintegration back into the files,
Yes.
and relearning it, right?
Yes.
When you get that transcript right away, and then, you don't have to, if you want to report to the client, it's fresh in your mind. You have the transcript. You can send it off. You can highlight some stuff. You can go in and remember the important Q&A. So your ability to take the important stuff, make notes about it, put it in the file. When you have the transcript, either the rough or the next day certified, is incredibly efficient and incredibly important.
So it sounds like remote depositions, technology, here to stay, huh?
Yeah. And so if you think about my practice, right, I'm located in Boston, but, the majority of my cases are outside of Massachusetts, or I'm litigating, right now, a couple big cases in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. The minute you don't have to travel is a huge cost savings.
Right.
And the minute you're doing remote, clients, business people, associates, colleagues, experts can all participate without having to travel. They can log in, observe. You can then collaborate on the back end. So you're not slipping notes across the table anymore. You're doing the chat functions. And then more importantly, I think that the real-time feed gives colleagues who, there's oftentimes where, you want to sit in on the deposition because you're taking the next deponent and you want to hear what this one is going to say. Well, if you have that transcript, maybe you don't have to sit in. Maybe you can just review it that evening as you prepare for the next day.
So the use of remote technology, the use of technologies like Readback and like LiveNote, et cetera, certainly in your mind, it sounds like raises the level of an attorney's game, right? Kind of creates efficiencies and creates advantages really in how to handle a case and how to better get to a better result. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Technology is here to stay. And yeah, there are a few dinosaurs that will stick with the old way of doing it, but they are missing out. Even going live to a deposition, right? I have done it, and several of my colleagues have said, I am not schlepping a box of physical exhibits to a deposition anymore. They're all going to be online. It's easy,
yeah,
faster, and it's more efficient.
What do you say to the attorney that says, well, I like to size up the opponent in the room, or I like to get close to the person with the exhibit, et cetera? What do you say to those attorneys? Are they missing something if they use a remote technology?
So being live is, and that's why we have live witnesses, in courts, because credibility and the like. I think that when you're over Zoom and you got a head up shot, There are some protocols that we put in place so that that witness is alone. No one's whispering in the back of the ear. They don't have anything else. You know, I think that my ability to assess the credibility and, you know, look into that witness's eyes is probably 95% of what it is when I'm sitting across the table. And if that saves me and my client a day of travel in advance and a day of travel, you know, afterwards, that's, you know, that's a lot. And then here's where I think it becomes important for, I don't want to say the less complex cases, but say if you have a witness that you only need an hour or two of testimony. Well, if you can do that remotely, and if you're getting real time for the same cost of the, you know, the court reporter, you know, you're more apt to be able to take those depositions. You can stack 2 or 3 of those in one day and, you know, and knock them all out.
What do you say to the guy that says, I don't need to see the live feed. I don't need the transcript in one day. I don't need the rough draft. I mean, well, what do you say to those folks?
You don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
It's, you know, try it. And cause I swear once you try it, you're gonna, you know, you're gonna like it, and you're gonna use it, and you're gonna want it. And it's not too different, right? And so today you walk into a courtroom, right? You know, and you're going to do, you know, and so we've done it both live and, you know, hearings. Many of the courts now are embracing the Zoom hearings, which is great from the client's perspective because you're avoiding a lot of travel. You know, it used to be way back in the day, we would have those foam boards where we would have to do all of our chalks and our exhibits, and we, you know, have to schlep these big. Now it's all PowerPoints that you can do, right? So embrace technology. It's a faster, easier, more efficient, more effective way to practice law.
That's a great place to stop, John. Attorney John Skelton, thanks for taking the time today.